Shalom Aleichem, it's Yaakov Ram Shepherd here from King David's Tomb, KingDavidKabbalah.com, and we have an interesting question about the spiritual prehistory, let's call it. What was before the creation? What was before Adam HaRishon? Okay, so first of all, let's start with the understanding that time is very flexible, much more than what we are accustomed to think, and also space. And the mindset that we have that time is something that is like solid measurement is not true. Also in physics, they know it. In modern physics, everybody agrees that the time and space are much more flexible than what most of the people understand they are. Okay? So there's no contradiction in what I'm saying to science in any way. Even if there was, it was not a big deal. But okay, fine. That's a different. This is a different conversation. But now, so for example, we have a clear pasuk that we say in the Tehillim. We say 1,000 shanim benecha kayom etmol. That 1,000 years for you, Hashem, we say, is like one day. Okay? So we see that when we speak about a day in the time of the creation, it doesn't mean the day that we understand today. Meaning, for us, what is a day? That we have, we measure the time according to the circle of the earth, and a full circle is 24 hours. Okay? But that's when we have sun and moon and earth and all of that physical existence, right? So what was before the creation of the sun and the moon? Can you measure a day? What is a day, right? So when we're speaking about the 6 days of creation, right? So the moon and sun were created in the fourth day, okay? So we have days before that. So again, what is a day then? So according to this pasuk that a day can be 1,000 years, I don't think that you have to be specific that it's 1,000 years just exactly. Just it's a concept that it's flexible. It can be what we call today millions of years. Okay? It's not something that you have to say that it must be just 1,000 years. So now, after we understand that, so we understand that really we don't understand, because how can you measure? Right? So when we say a certain amount of time, it has meaning, but it's not as solid as we think it is. Okay? The same thing in space. For example, there is a Gemara, I believe it's Masechet Pesachim, Tzadik something, Tzadik Tet maybe, that is discussing the seven heavens, right?
Seven heavens.
The seven heavens. Okay? So there's seven heavens, and to describe the distance between one heaven to another, the Gemara is saying that it takes you 500 years to walk from one heaven to another. Okay? Now, what does it mean to walk 500 years?
Right.
What kind of a distance like is that?
Right.
How do you measure something like that?
Because now you have spaceships that go significantly quicker than 500 days walking.
Okay, so and when we're speaking about the seven heavens, we're not talking about like physical seven heavens.
Right,
we're talking about like some spiritual existence.
Sure.
So we're taking the measurements, some measurements that we know. Let's say we make a calculation. Let's say a normal human being, healthy, how long does he walk in a day? So you multiply that in 365 days for 1 year, and you multiply that in 500 years, and then that will be as if the physical distance of walking 500 years. Okay? Is that what the sages are talking about?
It can't be.
Obviously, they're talking in a way of a parable. They're talking about it in a way of a concept. They're giving us a certain concept. So we have to understand what does it mean, those 500 years. Okay? And we're talking about spiritual space, not physical space.
Right.
Okay? So all of those measurements, also in the written Torah and also in the oral Torah, it is concepts that we need to learn how to treat them and how to use them to understand the inner meaning of what does it mean, those statements. Okay. So now, after we understand that we don't understand, let's go back to the original question.
Sure.
Okay, what was before the creation?
Yeah.
So, first of all, the clear answer that we can say is that let's say that we make a timeline of the creation.
Right.
Okay, and we say that the physical existence, as we know it, stored in a certain point within this timeline. Okay, so before that point, there is an existence, but it's not physical. Okay, so it goes on, the line goes on further back, but it's not physical. Okay, so obviously the time is different when you're talking about without physical existence. Right? You cannot measure. The way that we're measuring time is in relation to the physical, to the space.
Sure.
So if you don't have physical space, you cannot measure the time in relation to space, because you don't have that.
Set of rules would be completely different.
Okay, so we have concept of time that is not as we think it is. It is more of explaining a chain of reaction. Okay, meaning cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. So we have within the books of the Kabbalah, all the books behind you, we have a lot of explanations, very, very deep explanations, about this chain of events that are, again, spiritual development of the creation, which is before the physical creation. Okay? And when you learn this, all of those books, that by itself takes a lot of time, but the understanding is, again, it's not solid understanding. You can have a certain sense of what does it mean if you have the merit to understand the deeper meaning of things, but it's not something that we can give a clear, solid answer that now we know what it is. Right. Yeah. So to make it simple, the written Torah starts with the word Bereshit. What does it mean, Bereshit? The beginning of, right? Usually, simply. So the beginning, it means as if the beginning of the timeline, right? Supposed to be.
Right.
That from there, you can count the days. Then you have the first day of the creation, the second day of the creation. Again, each one of those days, we don't know, like how, if we could have measured it according to our days, how many days would it be? We have no idea. It can be 100,000, millions, zillions, who knows? There's no answer to that. But it's talking about a certain timeline. And they say that the reason that it starts with the bet and not with the aleph is to tell us that there is also prehistory before that the Torah is not talking about.
Wow.
Okay? And then that also, obviously, we don't know how long it was that. Yeah. Even after the Bereshit, we don't know how long does it mean, those days of the creation. Yeah. But before that, for sure, we don't know. So you can find in the one of the books that I'm putting a lot of time and effort into is the book of the Rashash, that is the main heritage of my Kabbalah, what I'm teaching, what I'm learning, what I'm dealing with. And in the main book that he wrote is called Nahar Shalom. Within Nahar Shalom, you have a certain paragraph that was written in the Siddur of one of his students, and it seems that it's supposed to be that it came from him. Can't say for sure, but that's what it seems. So there is explaining a little bit about this point. you have a certain understanding that is connecting the chain of reaction of the spiritual worlds of before the physical creation, and is tracking it back, like when was it according to the same timeline. Meaning, if we understand that Rosh Hashanah, in 1 week we're getting to Rosh Hashanah, is the day of the creation of Adam. Yeah, it's the birthday of Adam Arishon. So, and Adam was in the 6th day of the creation.
Right.
So we go back 6 days before Rosh Hashanah. So supposedly, according to our days, that will be Kafei Elul, right? Which is, I think, another couple of days.
2 days.
2 days, right? So that will be Kafei Elul. So that's supposed to be the date of the creation of the world. Once again, it's according to the days that we know.
Right.
What does it mean in the days of the creation? We don't know. But as if, let's say, that it's within the same understanding that we have of the days. So now is going back from there, meaning from the Kafei Elul, like 1 week before that was a week of rectification, and 1 week before that was the week of the breakdown of the of the world before the rectification to provide the creation of the world. So that's basically where it goes to. Okay, that's basically where it goes to. But again, we are trying to use what we know, what we understand about time and space, and to apply that to something that really we don't know. Yeah. So it's like it's a joke. You can't do that. You can't use like measurements of one dimension to measure and to define a different dimension. That is, it's going with different measurements. That doesn't work. So there is something like that. There is rabbis, even big rabbis, that are saying things like that. But once again, for me it's clear that they don't mean it in the way that most of the people will understand it. They mean it in a way of a parable, meaning we don't have any other measurements. I cannot tell you, even if I know, I cannot put it in words to describe something that is in a dimension that you don't have understanding. So what can I do? I can tell you about it from the words that you know, from the concepts that you know. So I tell you, look, to walk from one heaven to another, it will take you 500 years. I don't really mean it. I don't really mean that someone will walk 500 years. I'm just saying that as a parable. So you can have some kind of an idea about it, and that will give you an idea. That's a big distance. Wow, that's a big distance. Okay, fine. Okay, now it is language. All of the Kabbalah is language of parables, and you need to understand the subject of the parable. You need to understand the meaning that stands behind the person that is saying that statement. So, with all of that, I hope I gave some understanding and I brought more clarity than confusion. And Bezrat Hashem to be continued for all our life. Amen. Amen.